Hey, how you doing? In today's video, I want to talk about using less gear to make better portraits. And some people might call that being a minimalist photographer. All right, now, not to be confused with minimalist photography, which is the type of photography you might have seen where there's like the composition is very simplistic, or there's a lot of negative space in an image. That's minimalist photography, but I'm talking about minimalism in terms of the gear that you use, your approach, keeping things simple. Of course, I'm not saying that you should shoot everything with an iPhone, even though you could. Just take a look at Louisa Dore's work. 12 covers for Time magazine using only available light. Pretty amazing pictures too. I'm talking about using less gear to do better photography. Of course, you can bring along a lot of gear and make good photographs, or you can bring along less gear and make good photographs. Some photographers really see the benefit in carrying around less gear. Here's why. You probably don't need all that gear that you carry around with you for a typical shoot. Now, if you're shooting wedding photography, it's a different story. Anything critical, definitely have backup gear with you. Otherwise, why carry around more than you need? And you might say, hey, Ed, you know what? If I take all my lenses, then I've got options. I've got creative choices. Why would you want to constrain me? And to that, I'd say, yeah, maybe you're right. Oh, well, if I bring my 50, if I bring my 85, if I bring my 70 to 200 with me, I've got all these different things I can do. And I'd say, yeah, you're absolutely right. If that's what you want to do, if you want to bring along a bunch of gear so that you've got all these options available to you, then go for it. On the other hand, you can say to yourself, you know what, I'm just going to take a 50 with me, and I'm just going to be determined to come back with some awesome portraits. It is true that options can be important, but know the difference between having options and feeling like you're carrying around a security blanket with you. Because if you're carrying around all this gear with you when you don't really need it, that kind of thing can backfire. That brings me to point number 2, and that is that less gear can mean simplicity and freedom and more focus. Less gear means you have less to think about in terms of options. You're keeping it simple. Less gear also means you have less to carry around and less to keep track of and less to worry about. Carrying around less stuff, keeping track of less stuff keeps you light and free, and that helps keep the creative juices flowing. Less gear also means you can maintain focus on the things that matter. You can focus more on your environment and your subject and the story that you're trying to tell with your pictures. Point number 3 that I'd like to make is that focusing less on gear kind of gets you out of the habit of just spending a lot of time researching and salivating over the next big hot camera and lighting gear and gadgets. All of that stuff that you might be doing that has very little to do with creating meaningful photographs. Now, do I practice what I preach? Am I a minimalist photographer? I think most of the time, yes, I am. I mean, look, I started off as a film photographer way back when I was a kid in the late 1970s. My first camera was a Minolta XG7, and it came with a 50mm lens. And that was really all I needed for the longest time. I really didn't get into, being really gear heavy until I got into wedding photography. And then, and that's, like I said before, that's just kind of the responsible thing to do. I mean, you need a variety of lenses, and you need backup cameras, and you need things like that in order to fulfill your duties as a wedding photographer. But even as a boudoir and portrait photographer, which is pretty much all I've been doing for the past several years, all I really ever need is a 50mm lens. I mean, sometimes I'll use something else, but for the most part, I like to keep it simple. I think there's been this gradual shift with me, with getting back to the basics, getting back to where I started from. And I think a lot of it has to do with just the confidence that you get with experience. And I'm saying that even if you're not as experienced as I am, even if you don't have years and years of photography behind you, just using the same gear all the time is going to give you that kind of confidence, because you'll know what you can do with a particular lens and camera. Right now, if you ask me what my favorite camera is, it's going to be one of my film cameras, like this one right here. This is a Nikon FE. I think it was made back in the 70s. It's just a basic film camera and 50mm lens, and it does the job. And as a matter of fact, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to do this in today's video, but what I'm going to do in the next video is I'm going to run through a roll of pictures. This is a roll of film that I shot and had developed, and You know, these days they scan things and put them on, they put your pictures on a CD-ROM. But we're going to talk about this set of pictures that I shot with this camera, and we're going to discuss a little bit about what you can do with just a basic film camera. And we're going to use that to sort of drive home the points that I was making today about how you can often use just basic, simple equipment to get the pictures that you need if you're just determined to do that. And it's going to be a good lead into the other videos I have coming up having to deal with film photography. So make sure you subscribe so that you'll know when that next video comes out. And I want to thank you for hanging out with me today. I'll see you next time.